Hello once again. Right now, I'd like to talk about kenosis or self-emptying. What does that mean? Well, it's a theological term that we don't hear too often. And for me, kenosis means quite simply surrender. In Alcoholics Anonymous, people often say, I didn't quit, I surrendered. Surrender is a word that naturally grates on the ego, at least it grates on my ego. It tends to be synonymous with giving up. And the ego hates the idea of giving up because it insists on remaining fully in charge. One of my favorite poems of all time is D.H. Lawrence's poem, Song of the Man Who Has Come Through. And the first thing I want to do when talking about this poem is to change the title to Song of the Man or Woman Who Has Come Through. For me, this poem depicts kenosis or surrender in the most exquisite way. Here it is. Not I, but the wind that blows through me. A fine wind is blowing the direction of time. If only I let it bear me, carry me, if only it carry me. If only I am sensitive, subtle, oh, delicate, a winged gift. If only, most lovely of all, I yield myself and am borrowed by the fine, fine wind that takes its course through the chaos of the world. Like a fine and exquisite chisel, a wedge blade inserted. If only I am keen and hard, like the sheer tip of a wedge, driven by invisible blows. The rock will split. We shall come at the wonder. We shall find the Hesperides. Oh, for the wonder that bubbles into my soul. I would be a good fountain, a good wellhead, would blur no whisper, spoil no expression. What is the knocking? What is the knocking at the door in the night? It's somebody wants to do us harm. No, no, it is the three strange angels. Admit them, admit them. So Lawrence is talking about a force that moves through him, which I would call the sacred, the divine, or spirit. And the first image of it that he uses is the image of the wind. It's not only a wind that blows through him, but the wind carries him. And here he implies that the wind has an intention. It doesn't want to destroy him, but rather carry him. The wind may be robust, but it isn't ferocious. However, it does take its course through the chaos of the world. However, the next image is ferocious. It's an image of a chisel striking an object, striking rock. He says, like a fine and exquisite chisel, a wedge blade inserted. If only I am keen and hard, like the sheer tip of a wedge driven by invisible blows. And isn't that how we sometimes feel in the face of adversity? As if invisible blows are striking us, as if we're being hammered by a chisel? Here we get the image of the sculpture striking the blows into the rock in order to create something beautiful. At least that's the image that occurs to me. And then he says, the rock will split. We shall come at the wonder. We shall find the Hesperides. This is such a seemingly violent, ferocious image of ego demolition. The rock splits, and then we're amazed at the wonder of it all. And as a result, we find the Hesperides. What does that mean? Well, in Greek mythology, Hesperides is a place like heaven, like any of our idealized versions of happiness, which lies beyond the reach of our humanity, a place that is idyllic and magical and wonderful. In Christian terms, a kind of heaven. And then quite naturally, Lawrence exclaims, "Oh, for the wonder that bubbles into my soul. I would be a good fountain, a good wellhead, would blur no whisper, spoil no expression." He's in awe of the process. And immediately he says, "I want to be a good fountain, a good wellhead. I will blur no whisper, spoil no expression." I'm totally convinced. This ego shattering process, this ego demolition has changed me. I'm in. And then he says, "What is the knocking? What is the knocking at the door at night?" "Well, it's somebody who wants to do us harm." And then he says, "No, no, it's the three strange angels. Admit them, admit them." In other words, I hear this thing or this situation or this dilemma or this disruption that's knocking on my life, and my immediate reaction is dread. It wants to hurt me. It wants to upend my life. It wants to destroy me. Well, my ego at least. But no, he says, it might be the three strange angels. Admit them, admit them. In mythology, wonderful things often come in threes, like the Trinity, the Magi, the three graces, and of course, the third time is the charm. What's most important in the ending of the poem is that Lawrence concludes that the wind, the chisel blows, the terror, the paranoia, all of them, if surrendered to, are ultimately angels. And rather than run from them, we must admit them because they have come to transform us. And of course, you're probably thinking, easy for you to say. That's right. When adversity begins to rattle our psyches, our first response is not usually, admit them, come on in and destroy my life. And so when I feel that rattling on my psyche, I go back to this poem and chew on it once again. But I can't analyze this poem without reading the most profound poem of surrender that I'm aware of. And it's from Rumi. And he says, "The grapes of my body can only become wine after the winemaker tramples me. I surrender my spirit like grapes to his trampling, so my inmost heart can blaze and dance with joy. Although the grapes go on weeping blood and sobbing, I can't bear any more anguish, any more cruelty. The trampler stuffs cotton in his ears and says, 'I am not working in ignorance. You can deny me if you want. You have every excuse. But it is I who am the master of this work. And when, through my passion, you reach perfection, you will never be done praising my name.'"